September of '53, and he was born at a military hospital at Fort Lawton. And he got out of the service. He mustered out in February of '54, and we went to farming at Hermiston and raised watermelons. And a neighbor whose name I won't mention, or probably shouldn't. Well, anyway, raised watermelons for the first time, and they picked 2 semi-loads of green melons and shipped them with the Hermiston label. And by the time our melons actually got ripe and we started shipping, yeah, the old standbys at White Salmon and a few places in Portland at the morning market and so on, we were definitely selling melons, but we had a lot of them left over. And so they took a truckload, Keith and his brother-in-law took a truckload and swung down through Burns and John Day and over to Bend and went clear around the circle and came back home with this load of watermelons. And they dug a hole out in our field and dropped them in and run the disc over the top and then covered them up. So I imagine they had all kinds of volunteer watermelons the next year. Yeah, Ralph was born at Hermiston, and he was a preemie. And he weighed 4 pounds, 2 1/4 ounces when he was born. And he didn't have the will to live. He didn't. Back in those days, they took your baby when it was born, if it was a preemie, and they didn't let you hold it. You never touched a child after he left your body until you got ready to take him home from the hospital. And I think I kind of felt like I was mourning for him, and I know that he felt like he'd lost me, and he just didn't have the will to live. But finally, he made it up to 5 pounds. We picked him up the 30th or 31st of October, and he was born on the 1st. And he was finally up to 5 pounds. And we moved to Pacific City, yeah. Pacific City, Wacoma Beach, Ocean Lake are all part of Lincoln City today. But at that time, they were separate communities. There's 5 little communities that was swallowed up by Lincoln City over on the coast. And we moved there, and your grandpa was working for Pacific Power. And they were putting in a new feed line that was going to California. And then that job was over. They were moving on, and he didn't see how he could move us and keep moving us, like that. Mm-hmm. They were going to keep going, and he didn't want to leave me there alone, so with the 2 kids. So he didn't go with them. And when the Pacific Power crew was leaving town, they stopped at, what was the name of it? Nebo? Seems right. Nebo, something like that. Anyway, the restaurant. And met up with this logger who was looking for a whistle punk. Well, your grandpa never worked in the woods, but hey, this guy come back and he said, Keith, he says, I found you a job already. He said, they come right by the restaurant here. It was just a block from us. And they can pick you up every morning. They'll bring you back, drop you off there every night. And it's logging. I didn't know anything about logging. And pumpkin whistle, what was that? The guy says it's easy to learn. They give you a sheet of paper, show you how you're supposed to push the button. He says, I just know you can do it. I just know you can do it, Keith. You're a fast learner. You can do it. And he talked him into it. He says, but I haven't got a hard hat. Here. And he pulled the hard hat off his head and gave it to him. And pulled his boots off and gave it to him. And he was a logger. Here we go. So anyway, and he went up and worked until, well, that was right after Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken, the day after or 2 days after, something like that. And he worked right up till the day before Christmas. And and he liked it, but he didn't like the boss. So anyway, what was his name? I don't remember. But anyway, the guy he was working for at that time was jippoing for another couple of loggers, and they told him that they would hire him at any time that he wanted to go back. In the meantime, because the logging was down for the year, used to be down when it rained. We moved out to a ranch, and out there, out toward Dallas, Oregon. That's not Texas. And oh gosh, that was something. I had a big farmhouse. I mean, a big kitchen with no heat in the kitchen, just the stove. Now, it was electric range, and I guess they thought you'd cook enough on that to keep that kitchen warm. I'm not sure. The heat was in the other room with a door on it. That was a cold winter. That's all I can say. You had to cook in order to stay warm. But we didn't stay there too long. We ended up back over on the coast again, only at a different place now. And Grandpa went to work for the Roberts brothers, the one that offered him the job. So, and we lived there when we had the silver thaw one year. Well, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. I went to Baker, and when I was pregnant with Uncle Ron, and he was born at my folks' house. We didn't get away from the house. I went there so Mom could take care of the 2 kids while I was in the hospital. And we didn't get away from the house. I ended up having Ron in Mom and Dad's bed. I had him fast, dear. So anyway, and from there we went back over on the coast again, back to Pacific City. And we had the silver thaw there. And then it was so chilly over there for me. Grandpa loved it because he'd go out and play on the beach and all that when he got off work. It was hot inland. But anyway, we moved to Cloverdale then. And it was warmer for me. And we were still only 2 miles from the beach. So, okay. Plus, we could grow a garden there, including tomatoes, which your grandpa loved, and I do too. And between the garden and the whole bit, then I was pregnant with Raymond, and I almost lost him in August. He wasn't due until October, and they were afraid he was going to be a little bitty baby. He wasn't a little bitty baby. He was 8 pounds, 12 and a half ounces when he was born the 11th of October. So, okay, now I've got 4 kids, under 4. Actually, Richard was only 3 at that point, and I have 4 children. Richard was the oldest. So, okay. And then we moved to D-Lake. That's another part of Lincoln City. And I lost the twins there. I was pregnant with twins. And the kids got the hard measles. And I miscarried the twins. I was 5 months pregnant. I think it was a good thing. They were probably deformed because that hard measles does really cause problems with the fetus. So it was probably good that it happened. But Grandpa at that time was going to ship out to Alaska, and he was up in Seattle and working at Boeing. So anyway, he decided not to go to Alaska because they wanted him to sign on for 3 years, and he didn't want to be gone that long. We might have had further spacing of children had he been gone that long, but anyway. And then we moved from there, which we seem to do very regular, to Gerhardt, and he had a good logging job up there, but he worked for this guy for a month, and he cut his wages when we moved in. We were renting the house from him, and he cut his wages. We put in a big garden. I unpacked every box I had and burnt all the boxes. And he's asleep. And got it all together, and the following week he got his check, and we moved. So we packed up and we went to Reedsport, and he had a job there. But we moved on Memorial Day. It was Memorial Day when we moved. And we moved down there, and he had the job already. It was logging. And so he went to work right away. But finding a place to live was impossible. And we got in this duplex. Now there's an older couple downstairs, right? Mm-hmm. That don't really like children. And I'm on the upper floor. I've got these 4 little kids. Mm-hmm. We continued to hunt a house, and we kept seeing this one little place, but the blackberries were grown over the top of it. And he kept suggesting that we stop and see about it, and I said, "Oh, honey, it looks like it's probably run down under there." He said, "Well, listen, we need to get out of here before they kick us out, because they really don't like the noise, so let's see about getting in there." And so he went and talked to Mr. Foster, and Mr. Foster said, "Sure, but I'm not going to do anything to clean it up. Whatever you do is going to have to be something you do." So we did get in there. We rented for $40 a month, a 1-bedroom house. And it was on stilts. We were right at the junction between Deans Creek and the Umpqua River, right on Highway 38. And they built a dike. There'd been a flood there. I don't know when. I probably knew back then, but I don't know now. And the water had come up about 3 feet inside the house. You could still see the water line in there. And it didn't smell bad. It, evidently they dried it out. I don't know what they did, but it didn't stink or anything. So, yeah, we lived there quite some time. He logged, and then he picked huckleberry and salal brush for floral displays, and I bunched them, put them into 2 1/4 pound bunches, and put a wire around them and the whole bit, and I got 5 cents a bunch for doing that. It paid off, strange as it may sound. We got a mule during that time. Actually, he was a burro, and he got into more scrapes than you would believe. He got mad at Keith one day, and he had the brush already tied on, but it wasn't tied down good yet. But he had this wooden pack saddle on. Okay, and he took off through the brush running with that, trying to scrape the load off. Well, he managed to get the load off, but he got a limb right between him and the wooden saddle, and he's up there in the air, a brand, with all 4 feet going like crazy, a brand for his heart out. And Keith said he felt like coming home and just leaving him there. It was so bad at him by that time. But anyway, at that point, he got out of work, and what the heck, he was logging, and because the berries were on the huckleberry and on the salal, and it wasn't profitable to pick all the berries off to sell them, plus they look a little straggly at that time, they stopped buying the brush about then. And also, the logging wasn't going at that point because we had fire danger. So he found this log floating on Deans Creek, and it was a hollow log. It had been hollowed out in the middle, and he put a board across the front end of it, made himself a paddle, and he took that log boat across the river with the tide, across the Umpqua. There was an island on the other side. He went to the island. There was apple trees and stuff, and deer, and it was deer season. And so he got his hunter's permit, his deer permit, and he did go hunting for that, for the deer. We ended up with venison, but he couldn't bring it home until the tide came back. Until the tide came in, he went on the outgoing, he went to the island, and on the incoming, he'd come home. And he started taking the older boys with him over there, and they just loved it. They built a bonfire over there, right out in an island. There was no place for the fire to go. And they had a blast over there with Daddy on a camp out. Boy, oh boy. And Richard, when we left there, Richard turned 6 that year in September. So he had to be 5 when he was really getting a bang out of this. And Ralph went with him too. I don't remember about Ron, whether Ron got to go on the camp out or not. It's been a long time. I know Ray was home with me, but I don't remember Ray and Russ. Yeah, your dad. Your dad was born there. Yes. Yeah. I babysat for this woman. Well, what happened is we needed someone to look after the kids while I went to the hospital and to have your dad. And so we got this lady to watch the kids. I didn't realize how many children she had. She had 7 at that point. And she was pregnant with number 8. And then when her 8th one was born, we moved in with them. Now, she watched my kids for 1 day. We moved in with them, and I stayed there 8 days and did all the cooking, the laundry, and the cleaning of the house for the whole family. Now, there's 8 children and 2 adults, and then Grandpa and I, and my 5. And for her watching after my children for 1 day. I told Keith, I said, this is silly. Do you realize what I just did? But anyway, I told him, I said, I'm going home. I don't know what you're doing. They had all kinds of ideas about how long I was going to stay, and, and you were going to do this, and I was going to do that. And I went home. He didn't much like that. I don't know why. I told him, I said, 1 day she watched the kids. 1 day. And this is ridiculous. So anyway, from there, Russell, let's see, how old was Russell when we moved from there? I don't rightly know. I've got pictures of the other kids out in the landlord's yard. I don't have a picture of Russell. Well, now wait a minute. He was 16 months old when what we did in the meantime, we moved to Haynes, and Grandpa went to work in a grain mill, and then finally on a wheat farm, and then he pulled a Hank Snow and left and went logging. He ended up at Roseburg 3 days after the blast that they had. And yeah, and anyway, then I moved back down with him on our anniversary, and we lived in a one-room cabin for a week. It was raining, the roof leaked here, there, and yonder, and I guess we should have stayed in that house. We might not have had any more kids because the rain was coming down right between us in the bed. Might have been a birth control measure. From there, let's see, what did we do? Yeah, we finally moved out to Reston Ridge, and we stayed there quite some time. We stayed right in that area, around that area. There was lots of logging in the area, and we stayed around there. But he got tired of working for other people, So he decided to go horse logging. So he got him a logging horse. He'd never had a logging horse in his life. And horses and him kind of spoke the same language. And he went to work, let's see, first time he was out on Slaughter Creek, I guess, and he found a self-loader to haul his logs, and didn't seem profitable to me. I kept looking at what little dab of money he was bringing home and how many hours he was putting in, and I was, are you sure? I'm just getting used to it, honey. I'm just getting used to it, okay? But he had a good logging horse, old Dick, and he was a good one. And so then he heard about, what was his name? Can't think. Richard Nyberg had the Nybergs lived over close to us, over there at 10 Mile. But Richard was their son, and he lived in Medford. And he was running a pole peeler up here, and they were using horses to get the poles out. And so your grandpa loaded up his horse and came over here and got a job. Well, they were promised so much for that, and they didn't get paid at first. And when they finally got paid, why, they got a check that bounced like rubber. And so, I don't know why, but he stayed longer, was owed another check or two, and I had sense enough to quit my anyway. He didn't. He stuck with him. And what we ended up doing is getting old David. You probably don't remember Dave, do you? But we had him here. Dick was getting a little old by that time. And we had Dave here. He came from Dale Watson's place. But anyway, Dick Nyberg owned him. Okay. That was Grandpa's pay. He got a horse. Another guy got a saw. Another one got a horse. They kind of cleaned him out, but anyway. Then they went cutting cedar bolts, and we moved to Langlois, and I've had a lot of fun over the years with all of this, because you just get settled and you get used to your address, and you got a different one. You're not the same. So lots of places. We ended up at Langlois, and we were there during the flood of '64. That was at Christmas time. I wasn't here. I didn't see what happened here, but I understand it was really a good year. I understand there was no bridge then to get across at the Prospect Highway, from the fish hatchery to the Prospect Highway, that the bridge washed out, and lots of other things. But we were sitting above it anyhow. I still shiver about that one. Christmas Eve, we went to Port Orford, and we got the kids Christmas presents, and we got groceries, and the water was already over the bridge at the bottom of the hill when we came home. And he had to drive slow to keep from killing the engine. And we were in a truck. I'm not talking pickup. I'm talking truck. We got across it all right. But anyway, we got home, and here we are sitting up there above everything. You can see the water down below. There was no way to get to town. Oh. And we had apples. And of course we had groceries for a while, but we were up there quite some time, and we ran out of all the groceries except the apples. Why? There was a bunch of apple trees, and the apples stayed on the tree all winter. They did not fall until spring, and they were not rotten. They did not rot on the tree, which really amazed me. But we were down to just apples. Now, I don't know who's lived on just apples, but the bathroom and you are very good friends. You can hardly part company. So anyway, In the meantime, during a snowstorm that came after the floodwaters did, a deer walked past the house, and Grandpa tried to get it. He wounded it. He had to trail it in the snow. And he did get it. So we had venison and apple. That's almost as bad. You aren't quite as weak with venison too. But boy, you're still welcome in the bathroom. Hurry up, I gotta go. But when the kids went back to school, Russell talked about it at school. About the fact that a deer went past the house and Dad shot it, and then he had to trail it. And so, anyway, I've always felt bad about that. When I went to school, well, see, a lot of other things happened, but when I went to school for Parent-Teacher Day, all the teachers gathered together in the same room to talk to me. And Russell comes to school, his teacher said, Russell comes to school and tells these real good stories, but they must be stories. And she mentioned this one about the deer. And I said, oh, he always did tell good ones. In other words, I passed the poor kid off as a liar, and he was telling the truth. But there were other good things that they discussed at that time, because a lot of things had taken place. We were down kind of in a valley. We were in a sheep ranch, and we were kind of down in the valley, but there was a road up above us, way up above, and you dropped down into our gate, and then you had to come across the bridge, across the stream, and it was about 15 feet from the bridge down into the water. And it was kind of a real ditch down in there. And we went up and got some timbers that Grandpa had made arrangements to get to fix that bridge, because he says it's getting old. Well, I said, so you're going to pull up here and you're going to back down. No, I'm not going to back down. Okay. So what are you going to do? Park down there and then carry him around the end of the truck to the bridge? No, I'm not going to do that either. And I said, honey, shouldn't you be backing down? No, it's fine. Stop worrying. Well, anyway, we got down there. He pulled out on the bridge, and the stringers holding up the tires broke. And here we are sitting with these timbers underneath the frame of the truck, and that's all that's holding us. I had a bunch of my children on the back on that load, and I had two in the front seat with me. I bet Ray remembers this one. And I don't know, he had him climb over the cab of the truck, but I don't remember how we got the little ones out. I think I passed him out the window to him, and he took him over the cab, over the hood, and down on the ground. And I wasn't going to stick around. I went to the house. He kept some of the boys with him, but I went to the house. I wasn't going to watch that at all. My vision was the truck was going to end up in the bottom, wedged, because I didn't think it'd fit all the way. And we weren't going to be able to get in and out for a while. But that's not what happened. He did manage to get it underneath. I never asked how. I didn't care. Didn't interest me in the least. But they told that one at school. But all the kids were telling that one. And there were a few other good stories at that time, though I don't remember them all now. But anyway, and the teacher said, and how on earth do you get high-centered on the bridge? The kids, all the kids as teachers were in the same room, see, talking to me. And I said, well, it happened. It happened. It couldn't have happened. Yes, it happened. And I explained it. And they, okay, so when the rest of the kids are telling a story, then it's the truth. And when Russell tells it, it may or may not be. Poor kid, and he was being honest. But I couldn't tell him, that Keith went out and shot that deer in a snowstorm. It was a matter of survival, but I didn't want to have my husband in jail come on. So anyway, I don't remember when the waters went down far enough so he could ride the horse to town, but he did finally